Pro-Palestinian protests are escalating at universities in the U.S. Here in Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis says there is zero tolerance for hatred against Jewish people. The governor addressed the campus protests today, saying students and administrators at Florida colleges and universities will be expelled for pro-Palestinian demonstrations that cause violence or spark hate speech.
Now, Pensacola attorney Mike Papantonio says he and other lawyers are preparing to fight back against these universities that Papantonio says don't have the courage to stand up for its students. Tanner Stewart joins us to explain.
Sue, Bob, on Friday, Levin Papantonio Rafferty will host a series of seminars on how to sue universities for a lack of anti-Semitism policies and other ways in which they facilitated campus-based anti-Semitism. Speaking with Papantonio today virtually, he tells me it's not just about keeping Jewish students safe, but also protecting democracy.
People misunderstand the First Amendment. Okay, the First Amendment does not allow any group of people to engage in the kind of hatred that's being driven on not just Columbia, but all over the country. I mean, whether it's NYU, whether it's Harvard, whether it's Berkeley, you name it. This has taken place all over the country.
Attorney Mike Papantonio says school administrations like Harvard, Yale, Columbia University, and more are cultivating a dangerous environment for Jewish students by allowing pro-Palestinian demonstrations, many of which have gotten out of hand. Many students, though, feel they're within their rights.
We're standing here today because we're inspired by the students at Columbia, who we consider to be the heart of the student movement.
Papantonio says the protests are a coordinated charge against Western democracy.
I want you to understand, this is not random. This isn't a student who says, you know, I think I'll go out and protest this today. This is organized and it's driven by big money, by big money that would just as soon Israel disappear from the face of the earth. And it's been going on for a long time, and now we're seeing the very face of it with these demonstrations.
Now Mike Papantonio and many of the top lawyers around the U.S. are joining forces to fight back against university presidents, professors, and administrations where Jewish students have faced anti-Semitism and racism over the Israel-Hamas conflict. A recent survey from the Anti-Defamation League found nearly 3/4 of Jewish college students in the U.S. experienced or witnessed anti-Semitism on their campus since the start of the school year.
Until we can get their attention where the government does their job and says, you know what, this is not a breeding ground for anarchism. This is not a breeding ground for a jihad against the Israel. This is not a breeding ground to where any jackleg can simply take to the streets and say whatever they want to say, incite whatever they want to say. This is not 1960s anymore. But nevertheless, these professors and these administrators they're so incapable of leadership that the only thing we can do is sue them. And we're going to be suing at a record rate.
Officials at the University of West Florida declined to comment on the issue, directing us to this October memo from the Board of Governors, stating Governor DeSantis, the legislature, and the Department of Education have aggressively implemented policies to ensure that Jewish students, employees, and communities are protected from discrimination, harassment, intimidation, and violence. Here's the governor addressing the situation today.
These administrators and the presidents of these universities are weak, they're scared, and they don't do anything. You know, you do that in Florida at our universities, we're showing you the door. You're going to be expelled when you're doing that stuff.
Mike Papantonio says the upcoming webinars will discuss multiple angles for lawsuits, including the Civil Rights Act of 1983, harassment cases, and others. Papantonio says they'll stop at nothing to hold several major universities accountable. In the studio, I'm Tanner Stewart.